Jane Farnham from Great British Speakers, and I'm here today chatting to the amazing inspirational speaker, Sarah Furness. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Jane. Lovely to chat to you.
Yeah, so lovely to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Now, firstly, you do have a quite remarkable backstory that certainly lets you walk the talk when it comes to resilience and leadership. So give us a little bit of background about your how you started and how you got to where you are now.
Yes, of course. So I suppose the thing that's most interesting to people is that I was in the Air Force and I was a helicopter pilot for 21 years. And it all started a long time ago. I sort of set my mind on it when I was 12, having been inspired by Top Gun, which is very topical, obviously, because Maverick's out. And I was sort of very lucky to have, parents that really supported me to go off and do this. So it was always firmly in my sights. And then I spent 20 years flying helicopters and going into places like Iraq and Afghanistan. And I was a squadron leader, so I was also leading on these kind of missions. So you definitely, things get ugly from time to time, and you definitely learn some pretty amazing life lessons. But also, we are incredibly well trained as well. It doesn't happen by accident. We have to be able to deal with pressure. So we do get very, very highly trained. And I think that's something I realized that I had that I could kind of give back to everyone out there who hasn't had the training that I've had.
Sounds like quite a remarkable sort of journey that you've been on. I mean, so I remember when I was young and I always wanted to, I was doing a lot of outdoor pursuits and I was thinking I want to join the forces, and I went to have a meeting and I never quite went, I didn't go down that direction in the end. But is it everything that you expected it to be, or was it more, or was it completely different experience? Because I would imagine as a woman in your position, you were probably quite unusual.
Yeah, and it's such an interesting question, and I'm still working out what my answer is to that. Really, is it everything I wanted it to be? Yes, it was amazing, and there's a lot of getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and doing marching at the start and being very tired and digging ditches and all that sort of stuff that I suppose you would expect. So you do get quite tough, but also I think there's a kind of shared sense of, I don't know, it's all quite adventurous and fun, and you get to sort of play at being, I don't know, you sort of get to pretend that you're G.I. Jane. So it's all quite good fun, really. Obviously, until it gets real and the bullets start flying over your head. And you're there with like-minded people who like adventure. So yeah, it was everything I imagined it to be. It was still quite unusual for women to join when I joined up, because we're going back 20 odd years, and they were only just letting women fly on the front line. So, the women were going through, and I wasn't the first by any stretch of the imagination, but there weren't that many. So it was unusual to see women. And I don't know what it's like to be a man in this environment. I only know what it's like to be a woman in this environment. But I know it was obvious I stuck out a bit, and there weren't many other girls to talk to. But actually, I didn't know any better. And in some ways, now that I reflect back on it, because we talk about diversity and inclusion an awful lot, and a lot of women who are working in male-dominated environments, women in tech and things like that, they talk about the challenges that women face. But I think probably one of the things that I've learned is that the men were facing just the same challenges, but in a different way, because, they had this stereotype to be an alpha male, and they were all being alpha males, so in some ways there was even more pressure on them to conform, whereas I was kind of expected to be a bit different. So at the time I probably saw it as I was in the minority, and that was a weakness, but it might actually have been a strength. You just don't know. All I know is that I did my best and had a great time, and I learned some amazing things and met some amazing people.
Well, that sounds brilliant. And you retired. So then how did that evolve into speaking? What was the process and the journey there?
Yes. So towards the end of my career, I became really interested in kind of how the mind works. As I say, life doesn't always run smooth. You kind of have your own moments, don't you, where you're sink or swim. So I'd sort of been through some of that stuff, and I'd learned some techniques, and actually they're all based on mindfulness, which sounds a bit woo, but really mindfulness is just training your brain. And I realized that you can train your brain proactively to perform better under pressure and to feel better under pressure. And I realized when I sort of looked back over all the years of training that actually a lot of the stuff we were doing was training our brain. We just didn't know it back then, and we definitely wouldn't have called it mindfulness. But I realized we'd actually been doing a lot of this stuff, and that really does, when you look at sort of high performance athletes, one of the things I'll often say is it's about where you focus your attention, and actually we were trained to be highly focused under pressure. And that's actually something that everybody can train themselves to do. So I suppose I realized that I was in a very privileged position where I could bring to life examples of how we can train our brain. And I can show how they work, in combats, to give people the kind of proof that actually these techniques really do work, but they're equally applicable in the workplace. So I was in a very fortunate position that I could, tell some stories and people would be prepared to listen, and I could translate them into how it helps people in the corporate space.
So talk me through some of the topics that you cover during your speaking engagements, because obviously, we create and you create bespoke talks to all of your clients. So talk us through some of the key ones that, that really help in a corporate world.
Yeah, so I think probably one of the, it's really popular for people to come to me and talk about high performing teams. How do we perform better, particularly now when we are expected to do more with less, and that doesn't seem to be a trajectory that's going to be changing direction. And, the concept behind that's actually very simple, but it goes against the grain, and that is focus on one thing at a time, and I call this unitasking, and it's the antidote to multitasking, which we've all been doing. And I absolutely believe that this was the way forward, and I thought that's what we had to be able to do. But when I learned more about how the brain works, because the brain can only be in one place at a time, no matter how good tech is, we still have one brain and it can only focus on one thing at a time. But I also realized that when we were being trained to perform well under pressure, that's exactly what we were being trained to do. We were being trained to prioritize and focus on one thing at a time. So I talk a lot about, focus on one thing, and I can tell some stories about various helicopter crashes that I've been in that kind of illustrates how effective that is. And that's been a really popular topic because we all need to know how to get, more out of the day, and we all want to be able to perform at our best. So that goes down quite well.
I bet. And of course, we've got International Women's Day coming up. So that's always probably a very busy month for you. So you have developed quite a few keynotes. So what are your most popular?
So that one, the sort of high performance one is definitely very popular. I also love talking about leadership, and that can have a few titles, because it could be empowerment, particularly around International Women's Day. It could be leading in a male-dominated environment. Or, it could be more of how do we increase cognitive diversity. But the theme that I really like to bring out in that is how we become comfortable with this idea of not being everything to everyone, and, taking feedback on, and that sort of sting of rejection that we might feel, and the kind of those interferences we have to get past to be able to create the space where people can speak the truth, but also where we can hear the truth. So really, we are grappling with our own kind of feeling of, not being liked, or that kind of imposter syndrome that comes up. And I really love talking about that, because I think we all feel that self-doubt, but as leaders, we all feel like we shouldn't. And we should all have all the answers all the time. So I really love kind of connecting with the audience and going, it's not just you, it's me too. And actually, I've seen a lot of men who just have exactly the same self-doubt, and it's a really lovely kind of experience where we can just all share that we're all human.
It's really honest and authentic, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you can't, I love the phrase where you can't be everybody's cup of tea, otherwise you'd be a mug.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I just think that's really powerful. You also have a bit of an entrepreneurial streak, I hear. So how's the coaching aspect going for you?
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. And I started out, when I left the Air Force, I started out as a mindfulness coach. That's what I was going to do. I thought mindfulness is going to cure all of everyone's suffering in the world, and I just want to rid people of pain, and that was my mission. And the speaking kind of happened because the people that were coming to me for coaching were coming to me because of my military background. So they were kind of like, I want to dip my toe into this, and I'd like to learn how to deal with thoughts and feelings, but I don't want to start kind of omming, and I don't want you to make me write a gratitude journal. And I feel like you're not going to do that because you've been shot at and you're a helicopter pilot.
Yeah, the military and omming just tend to be poles apart, don't they? Polar opposites.
Exactly. And yet, if you say military and mental toughness, people go, yeah, that makes sense. And actually, they're the same thing, really. Yeah. So I realized I was attracting a sort of particular type of client that might think that all that stuff was a bit fluffy and didn't relate to them, but they're very interested in how to train their brain to perform better. And so that really helped me to kind of find my niche. And that's how I got into speaking, because I realized I could, tell these stories that brought these things to life. So what I do now really is I kind of focus on the speaking, and then that allows people to kind of try before they buy almost, and go, actually, I quite like what she's got to say. I quite like her methods. She's probably not going to make me meditate for 5 hours a day. And then, and then we can sort of develop that appreciation of each other. Because I think coaching, they've got to come to you. You can't go around poaching people and going, have you got any problems? Are you feeling weak in any way? Can I aggravate that a little bit so you feel really insecure, and then we can work together? I like it when people can come to me and go, I like what you're about. I think you can help me with a particular problem. And that's a really lovely space to be in.
So the energy seems to be bursting off you, and I can see the passion in your work. So what gives you the biggest buzz about speaking?
It's the shared sense of humanity, I think. I definitely went through a period in my life where I imagined I was the only person in pain and no one could possibly know what it feels like. And then as I got through that, I realized it sort of, I don't know, I saw something I could never unsee, and then I realized I'm not the only person that's got their stuff to deal with. And then when you start to kind of talk about it, but not in a victim way, but more in a positive way, and go, yeah, do you know what? Life's tough, but humans are brilliant. And look at what we can do, when we put our minds to it. So it's more of a kind of a tribute to humanity. And when you start to share that, and you start to see people's eyes light up and share, you just feel so connected to other people. And I find that people are so warm and so open and so open to sharing their experience, and it's just the most rewarding experience when people are are sort of connecting to you that way, and you feel you're like part of a bigger thing.
Well, you know what, it's been absolutely lovely chatting to you today, and you've got your book out because you've written a best-selling book. Yeah, tell us a bit about the book.
So the book was so the book is here, Fly Higher. It's actually not.
And it's a bestseller.
It is a bestseller. Thank you to all the people who answered my call, because it was very strategic. It comes out on a particular day, and then you bully everyone to buying a book on that particular day. So huge thanks if you're listening and you bought the book. But yes, the book was, I think part of it is when you're a speaker, people go, oh, so you must have a book, and you see these speakers and they're kind of frisbeeing books into the audience, because that's just, every speaker's got a book. So I was like, oh, I suppose I should write one. But I actually love writing. And also, this is really, if you want to sort of have me as a coach, but maybe you don't have the time or the inclination, this is everything I think you need to know to fly higher. So it's not a memoir. It's got plenty of stories in it, but it's not an autobiography. It's a book about how to train your mind, and it's got some funny stories along the way that kind of brings these to light. And it's very much, people describe it as it's very much like having a conversation with you, Sarah. You can kind of hear me speaking to you and going, right, come on, let's just get rid of the BS and work out what's holding us back, and let's all go and be fantastic, because we deserve to be. So
lots of key takeaways in that book. I'm looking forward to reading
it. It's got quite a few exercises in it, and I'm very inspired by Ruby Wax. I don't know if you've come across Ruby Wax's work. She's done quite a few books, and I've got a few of her books behind me, and her survival guide. She's got a mindfulness guide for survival, and in it, you could write little things in the book and sort of make it your own. And I thought, yeah, I want to do that. I want this book Fly Higher to be your training manual for the mind that you've got with you. So there's space in it for you to kind of make it your own and write your own ideas down.
Go out and get your copy today. So it's been absolutely amazing chatting to you, Sarah. Thank you so much. And if you would like to book Sarah, an inspirational lady, as we come into International's Women's Day in March, to discuss adversity, resilience, leadership and peak performance, mental health, well-being, teamwork, communication, so much we can, Sarah will of course speak to you, adapt her talk to suit your audience and get the message across that you need delivered to your team. Then just contact myself or Steve at Great British Speakers on 01753 439 289, or you can email bookings@greatbritishtalent.com. Sarah, thanks once again.
Thank you so much, Jane. Lovely to be here.